What's the big deal? It's just an arm. Get a prosthetic and stop milking it for sympathy. The words hung in the air like poison. Someone in the gallery gasped. A woman's voice cut through the shock with a single phrase. "Oh my God." Judge Frank Caprio raised his hand. Not slowly, not casually. A sharp, decisive gesture that stopped every sound in the Providence Municipal Court. Stop. Everyone stop. The silence that followed wasn't ordinary courtroom quiet. It was the kind of silence that happens when something unforgivable has been spoken aloud, when the air itself seems to recoil. Caprio's eyes fixed on the 19-year-old at the defense table. Brown University sophomore, legacy admission, clothes that screamed money, and a smirk that said he still believed the world would clean up his messes the way it always had. "What did you just say?" the judge asked, voice low enough to make the court reporter lean forward. Bryce Kensington actually shrugged. "I'm just saying people use disabilities for attention all the time. It's a thing." In the gallery, Maria Barnwell's grip on her husband's one remaining hand turned her knuckles bone white. She had endured stares on buses, pitying glances at checkout lines, strangers pretending not to see the pin sleeve for 14 years. But never this. Never the boy who had already broken her husband once, now mocking the price already paid. Across the aisle, Warren Kensington, patriarch, donor of hospital wings, man whose name opened every door in Rhode Island, had gone the color of printer paper. Not embarrassed pale, terrified pale, because he suddenly understood exactly whose life his son had almost ended. Judge Caprio let the silence stretch until it became its own punishment. Then he spoke again, quieter still. "Young man, you will stand when you insult a decorated combat veteran in my courtroom." Bryce stood, confused, like the rules had changed without warning. 20 minutes earlier the case had looked routine. Another spoiled college kid, another traffic camera, another fat check about to make everything disappear. The clerk had called it without inflection. Case 2025, TR 2287, City of Providence versus Bryce Allen Kensington. Reckless driving, hit and run causing injury, leaving the scene, failure to render aid. Incident December 8, 2024. Victoria Ashworth, 15-year veteran of Kensington Damage Control, rose in 4-inch heels and silk that cost more than most bailiffs made in a month. "Your Honor, my client accepts responsibility and is prepared to make full restitution today. We request. There will be no shortcuts today." Counselor Caprio cut in, calm as winter. "A man was left bleeding in the street. We are going to talk about that." Bryce sighed, loud enough for the first 5 rows to hear, and checked his Rolex. The victim had arrived 61 minutes early. Military habit dies hard. Theodore Teddy Barnwell sat ramrod straight in the front row, left sleeve pinned neatly at the elbow, right hand resting on his thigh like he was still at parade rest. 20 years since his last firefight, and he still couldn't be late. The prosecutor laid out the night in flat, merciless detail. 9:47 p.m. Thayer and Waterman. Red light, 41 miles an hour. Phone records showed an active call. Traffic cam footage. White walk signal, pedestrian crosswalk, black Mercedes never braking, impact, body tumbling 12 feet, 4-second pause while the driver stared. 4 full seconds Teddy lay broken and visible, then tires squealing away. Then the messages. Text to Chad, 22 minutes after impact. Hit some guy, whatever, dad's lawyer fixing it. 3 minutes later. Relax, bro, it was some one-armed dude prob faking for money. Instagram story 40 minutes later, champagne in hand. Untouchable 100 points. Snapchat an hour after. Laughing emoji, flex bicep emoji. What's he gonna do, chase me? The growl that rolled through the gallery had teeth. Caprio turned to the defendant. "Anything to add, Mr. Kensington?" "Didn't see him, Your Honor. Dark street. You didn't see the red light either." Bryce opened his mouth, closed it. Then Caprio did something rare. He looked past counsel, past the bench, straight into the gallery. "Sergeant Barnwell, please approach the podium, please." Teddy rose without hurry. Walked like a man who had learned long ago that panic never helped anyone. Stopped at the witness podium, faced the judge. "State your name and occupation for the record." "Theodore Barnwell, Your Honor. Most call me Teddy." counselor at Providence Veterans Center, volunteer adaptive sports coach when I can. And before that, United States Army, Sergeant First Class, retired. 20 years. Kritu Afghanistan. Even Bryce glanced up from his manicure. Caprio's voice softened a degree. Tell the court how you lost your arm, Sergeant. Teddy's eyes flicked to the pinned sleeve, back to the judge. March 14th, 2011. Kandahar. Convoy escort. Lead truck hit an IED. Caught fire with 4 men still inside. I was pulling them out when the secondary detonated. Took the left arm just below the elbow. Flat. Like reading tomorrow's weather. Decorations? Bronze Star with V, sir. But the ones who didn't come home earned it more. Miss Guerrero read the citation. The clerk's voice rang clear. Despite immediate traumatic amputation of his left forearm, Sergeant Barnwell maintained suppressive fire, applied tourniquets to 2 wounded soldiers, and carried a third 400 meters to safety under continuous enemy fire. Actions directly saved 3 lives and contributed to the survival of 14 others. 17 lives. 1 arm. Someone in the back row began crying without shame. An old Marine in a faded cover stood and snapped a salute that wasn't required. Warren Kensington looked ready to vomit. Caprio let the weight settle, then asked Teddy to describe the December injuries. 3 cracked ribs, torn rotator at the old amputation site, concussion, road rash shoulder to ankle. Christmas spent in a brace instead of lifting his niece. Bryce rolled his eyes and muttered, "So he's a soldier. Still doesn't mean I did anything wrong." That was the match. Caprio's voice dropped to a whisper you could hear in the back wall. "Mr. Kensington, would you like to address the victim directly?" Bryce shrugged. "I guess. What do you want me to say?" Caprio waited, and Bryce gave the line that would define the rest of his life. "What's the big deal? It's just an arm. Get a prosthetic and stop milking it for sympathy." The room inhaled as one organism. Caprio's hand shot up again. "Officer Briggs, lock the doors. Nobody leaves." He removed his glasses, set them down like a man laying aside a weapon, and looked at Bryce the way men once looked at cowards. "Young man, that man traded his arm for 17 American lives while you were still in diapers. He spent 18 months learning to butter toast with one hand while you were learning to swipe credit cards. He came home and spent every day since helping men more broken than he is humanly possible, while you spent your life making sure you never had to be inconvenienced by anyone else's pain. And you stand here in a $5,000 outfit and tell him to stop milking it." Bryce's face cycled through confusion, defiance, then the slow dawn of real fear. Caprio turned to the father. "Mr. Warren Kensington, stand up." Warren rose like a man on the edge of a heart attack. "Have you ever served this country?" Long, ugly pause. "No, Your Honor." "Vietnam, elite by." Victoria Ashworth tried to object. Caprio silenced her with a look that could freeze fire. Warren's voice cracked. "Medical deferment. Back injury. Documented by the same family friend physician who signed 6 identical deferments for every Kensington male in Rhode Island, 1968 through 1972. Warren sat down without permission, head in his hands. Teddy spoke quietly from the podium. "They called it Kensington Syndrome in the papers, Judge. Same bad back, 6 bodies, 0 days in uniform." Caprio turned back to Bryce. 3 generations of your family took every freedom this nation offers and gave back exactly nothing. And now you laugh at the man who paid for your freedom with his flesh. Then he delivered sentence like a surgeon with a scalpel. Guilty on all counts, plus contempt of court for today's performance. Public apology read aloud in open court to Sergeant and Mrs. Barnwell. $75,000 restitution within 60 days. 400 hours, 1 hour for every hour Teddy spent relearning how to live. At Providence Veterans Center, direct contact with disabled vets, monthly attitude reports. 12-week Veterans Awareness Course. 30,000-word essay on sacrifice and privilege, graded by this court and by Sergeant Barnwell personally. Personal tour of Walter Reed amputee wards. 3 years mandatory silent attendance at Memorial Day and Veterans Day ceremonies. Driver's license suspended 2 years. Bryce looked physically smaller. Then Caprio looked at Warren. You will read a full public admission of your family's draft avoidance on this record today. You will donate $100,000 to Wounded Warrior Project. And you will attend the same Veterans Awareness course as your son. Maybe both of you will finally learn what the word duty means. 8 months later, the Veterans Center still smelled of burnt coffee and hope. Bryce had finished his hours. The first weeks he was a ghost, sullen, silent, treated like radioactive waste by men and women who had seen worse than him, but never weaker. One double amputee told him, "Don't touch my chair, rich boy." But he kept showing up. Week 6, he spent 3 hours on his knees helping a 73-year-old Vietnam vet fit a new prosthetic leg. When the old man finally walked 10 steps unaided, he looked down and said, "You're that kid, huh?" Bryce nodded. The vet shrugged. "Keep coming back." That's all we ever did. Bryce kept coming back. He learned to wrap stumps, push wheelchairs over thresholds, listen to nightmares at 2 a.m. without flinching. He ran score at wheelchair basketball games where grown men with no legs played harder than any frat league he'd ever seen. He sat with a 24-year-old who cried because he couldn't feel his daughter's face anymore. Month 7, he asked, no, begged, to testify for a bill increasing penalties for crimes against veterans. Stood at the State House podium in the same suit he'd worn the day he mocked Teddy Barnwell and said, voice shaking, "I thought money made me untouchable. Sergeant Barnwell showed me some things can't be bought. Respect is one of them." The bill passed. On the day his hours ended, Teddy found him folding chairs after practice. They walked to the parking lot together. Teddy leaned against the, now scratched up, Mercedes the judge had let Bryce keep for work only. "You're not the same kid who walked in here," Teddy said. "I'm trying not to be." "Good. Keep trying. Takes longer than 8 months. Takes the rest of your life." Warren Kensington spoke at the next Memorial Day ceremony. Read every deferment, every doctor's note, every lie. Donated the original records to the National Archives. Gave 7 figures to veterans housing. Some debts you don't pay off with money, but you start somewhere. Judge Caprio kept 2 things on his desk afterward. A photo of Bryce keeping score at a wheelchair game while Teddy laughed beside him, and Maria Barnwell's letter. "Your Honor," it read, "for 14 years my husband carried a wound deeper than the one in Kandahar. The feeling his sacrifice didn't matter. You gave him proof it did. You made that boy look. Thank you for stopping everything that day. Some wounds never grow back flesh, but sometimes they stop bleeding, and sometimes that has to be enough.